Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome once again to my channel called Crime Uncovered by Silke Kaiser. For those of you who know what I'm doing, I'm busy reading from my book called Gotcha. It chronicles my career as a polygraph examiner. When I say polygraph, I'm talking about voice polygraph. I use voice stress testing in my work. For those of you who are following and who are enjoying, and I hope that at least one person is enjoying what I'm reading, please do like and subscribe. And without any further ado, I'm going into chapter 4, and it is called Marketing. During the time that I was doing the practical part of my course, I was allowed to conduct tests by myself. Cliff would listen to each test afterwards to make sure that I was not veering off from the training he had provided me, and would double check the scoring on all of my charts. I had the certificate confirming that I was now a truth verification specialist. Labels are meaningless to me, but what had great and deep meaning to me was the fact that I did not have a single client yet. Cliff suggested that I have flyers printed and hand these out at robots. It soon became clear to me that this would not work. South Africans, being jaded about such things, kept their windows firmly closed. The man I had employed to hand out my flyers tried smiling, making eye contact, walking close to the cars, but without any success. Eventually, after 3 days, I took the flyers back, put on a suit, low heels, and walked the streets to hand out my flyers. I was going to hand them out to people of importance at companies. I chose Isando first. I parked my car at the top of the road and walked into a company that was situated the closest to me. I was scared out of my wits, never having cold called before, but I relied on the truth of a saying that I've adopted as my own. I can either make excuses or I can do something, but I cannot do both. I was doing something, and it was not making excuses, as I asked the receptionist in a strong, clear voice if I could please speak to the head of their security. The company did not have such a thing. I then rephrased my question and asked who would deal with polygraphs. The receptionist advised me it would be the human resources lady, but that she was not in on that day. At that moment, the owner of the company walked past me, and overhearing what I was saying, called me into his office and requested more information, which I gladly provided. It would take this man 5 years to phone me, and by that time I was experienced and very pleased when I was able to obtain 3 confessions on that day regarding incidents of theft in his company on such a scale that it left him quite breathless. In all of my cold calling endeavors, I learned one very important thing: to ask for the correct person. As I entered through the doors of each company, I would now smilingly ask for the owner or the CEO. Receptionists were happy to oblige and dialed the correct extension numbers and would announce that someone was downstairs about polygraphs. The correct person, or sometimes the incorrect person, would come to the reception to speak to me. People were fascinated by what I had to say, and I began to enjoy this kind of marketing thoroughly. It took me 4 days to enter every single company in that little suburb called Isando, and from there I moved on to Wynberg, a suburb that lies adjacent to Alexandra Township. Once again, it took me a number of days to connect with all the companies in that suburb, and the first calls for quotes began to trickle in. I did my first solo test in a clothing shop in a little mall in Midrand, this being a referral from a company I had visited in Wynberg. Fraud was being committed at one of the till points. I could tell who the perpetrator was as soon as he sat down in the chair opposite me in the change room in which we had been placed. The shop did not have an office, so we had no choice but to work there. I could just feel his body language. Even though he sat very still in the chair, I had decided, even though it was not part of my training, to take a full and detailed statement from each subject prior to conducting the test. His version of why the figures and stock takes did not match made no sense to me. He did not believe that the fraud was taking place. He tried to convince me that the figures had been incorrectly captured. His blue eyes stared into mine unwaveringly. I knew he was sizing me up and challenging me at the same time. My strength rose within me. He was older than me, but I was not the one with something to hide. Once I had conducted the 3 tests, because there were 3 employees that worked as cashiers at the shop, I viewed the charts on my computer and I could see he had failed while the other 2 employees had passed. I advised the owner that I would give him the test results by tomorrow. I printed the charts out that night, scored them, and emailed everything to Cliff, who confirmed that my scoring was accurate. The following morning, I called the client to verbally give him the result and promised him he would have the full written report within the hour. The owner laughed without any mirth and said, "I knew it. It could only be him. The other 2 have been here for years, and only since he has arrived at this shop have we started to make these losses." This positive feedback boosted my confidence enormously. I will continue tomorrow. Have a great evening, everybody. It's about 6 o'clock in South Africa. Still light. I have to take my dogs for a walk. They're nagging me, looking at me with very woe-begone expressions. They're very deprived. And see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.